What if I told you Delita Heiral from Final Fantasy Tactics is directly a parallel to one of the great unifiers of Japan, Toyotomi Hideyoshi? Let's talk about it. Alright, so let's go straight into this. Who is Delita Heiral? He's the main anti-hero or anti-hero of Final Fantasy Tactics. And Final Fantasy Tactics is a tactical RPG game that came out around 1997, I want to say. And this was a big departure from the original Japanese role-playing game formula that Square Enix and Squaresoft at the time was making. So he's basically a commoner who was taken in by this man named Barboneth Baelv, and alongside his sister, Tetra, Delita grew up with this family. Delita's best friend is Ramza Baelv. He became a knight of the Order of the Northern Sky, along with Ramza. In the events that unfolded, he became known for centuries as a hero of the War of the Lions. Delita began as a knight apprentice of the Northern Sky along with Ramza. However, he became disillusioned with the Order after his sister's death, and thereafter operated as a lone wolf, forming different allegiances and partnerships with factions across Ivalice. Northern Sky ordered his sister's death because they did not want to bargain or have a treaty with people who were deserters of the knights, or people who were basically beggars who were trying to fight against the nobility because they were ex-soldiers, ex-knights. Using these as a means to an end to achieve his own ambitions, scholar Arazlam Durai, a historian researching the events centuries later, narrates that history has made Delita the only hero of the War of the Lions, and asks the audience to consider if this is the truth and help him find the true answer. Arazlam's research forms the framework story for Final Fantasy Tactics. And as you go on through the story, you realize that Delita is a commoner. He is a peasant, born into a peasant life, but then he's adopted. As you go on throughout the game, Delita is doing all of these betrayals, and he's following these people, and he's making these connections with people. Even Ramza, he reconnects with Ramza, but he's doing it all for himself. He's doing it all to become the ruler of Ivalice eventually. And does he achieve his goal? Absolutely. He unifies all of Ivalice under him. And while I was playing the game, I realized that no matter what he did, he was always alone. He always felt lonely. He always had a sense of longing for company, even though he didn't admit it, right? He was fighting for the memory of his dead sister, Tetra. And he kind of saw the princess as a perfect project to fulfill his plan, using the princess as a place marker or a placeholder for his sister Tetra. He's like, I will never let Tetra's memory die. So by not letting you die, I'm saving Tetra, which is something I couldn't do in the past. So he's using the princess in that way, which is kind of selfish when you think about it, because she is a totally different person. When you look at Delita's story and his journey and his life and where he ended up, you cannot neglect, you cannot ignore the fact that this is a very good comparison to what happened with one of the greatest unifiers of Japan of all time. What is his name? Kinoshita Tokichiro. And then eventually Hashiba Hideyoshi. And then eventually Toyotomi Hideyoshi. How are they similar? Let's talk about who Toyotomi Hideyoshi is. For all the people who don't know about Japanese history, this part is for you. So, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, otherwise known as Kinoshita Tokichiro and Hashiba Hideyoshi, was a Japanese samurai and daimyo which is basically a feudal lord of the late Sengoku and Azuchi Momoyama periods, and regarded as the great unifier of Japan. Although he came from a peasant background, did you catch that? He came from a peasant background, not nobility. His immense power earned him the rank and title of Kampaku, which means Imperial Regent, and Daijo Daijin, the Chancellor of the Realm, the highest official position and title in the nobility class. He was the first person in history to become a Kampaku who was not born a noble. He got the highest title in the nobility without being born a noble. Who does that sound like? He then passed the position and title of Kampaku to his nephew, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. He remained in power as Taiko, which is the title of retired Kampaku, until his death. It is believed, but not certain, that the reason he refused or could not obtain the title of shogun, the leader of the warrior class, was because he was of peasant origin. So he never was a shogun, but he was a daimyo. Hideyoshi rose from a peasant background as a retainer of the prominent Lord Oda Nobunaga to become one of the most powerful men in Japanese history. How did he do this? He was a very, very smart and skilled builder. So he built castles and he built fortresses during the war to help them in their attempts to combat other daimyo lords or feudal lords. And they won. He distinguished himself in many of Nobunaga's campaigns. After Nobunaga's death in the Honnoji incident in 1582, Hideyoshi defeated his assassin, who was a traitor, Akechi Mitsuhide, at the Battle of Yamazaki and became Nobunaga's successor. Even fought against Tokugawa Ieyasu, who also challenged him to be the successor of Oda Nobunaga. So in everything he did it in excellence. He did it in speed, and he did it in a convincing way. He had a charm to him. He had poise. He continued the campaign to unite all Japan that led to the closing of the Sengoku period. Hideyoshi became the de facto leader of Japan and acquired the prestigious positions of Daijo Daijin and Kampaku by the mid-1580s. He conquered Shikoku in 1585 and Kyushu in 1587 and completed the unification by winning the siege of Odawara in 1590 and crushing the Kunohei Rebellion in 1591. With the unification of Japan complete, Hideyoshi launched the Japanese invasions of Korea in 1592 to initial success, but eventually the military stalemate damaged his reputation and he ultimately died in 1598. We're not going to get into that because that is kind of the downfall of Toyotomi, which we don't really see in Delita's story. We just see him rise to prominence as the king. And of course, he ended up losing all of his friends in the process. We don't really know if Toyotomi Hideyoshi lost a lot of friends and people he trusted after he became the great leader and unifier, but you can use some imagination. So Hideyoshi had no traceable samurai lineage, and his father, Kinoshita Yaemon, was an ashigaru, a peasant employed by the samurai as a foot soldier. Hideyoshi had no surname, and his childhood name was Hiyoshimaru. Some variations do exist with this name, but Yaemon died in 1543 when Hideyoshi was just 7 years old. Many legends describe Hideyoshi being sent to study at a temple as a young man, but he rejected the temple life and went in search of adventure. Under the name Kinoshita Tokichiro, he first joined the Imagawa clan as a servant to a local ruler named Matsushita Yukitsuna. Then, 1558, Hideyoshi became an ashigaru for the powerful Oda clan, the rulers of his home province of Owari, now headed by the ambitious Oda Nobunaga. He became infatuated with his ambition, and Hideyoshi wanted to be like Nobunaga. He soon became Nobunaga's sandal bearer, a position of relatively high status. According to his biographers, Hideyoshi also supervised the repair of Kiyosu Castle, so he also managed the kitchen there. Hideyoshi carried out repairs on Tsunomata Castle with his younger half-brother, Hashiba Koichiro. Hideyoshi's efforts were well received because it was in enemy territory, and according to legend, Hideyoshi constructed a fort in Tsunomata overnight and discovered a secret route into Mount Inaba, after which much of the local garrison surrendered. So the victory was due to Hideyoshi's efforts. In 1564, Hideyoshi found success as a negotiator. He managed to convince a number of Mino warlords to desert the Saito clan, mostly with liberal bribes. This included the Saito clan strategist Takenaka Shigeharu, who eventually became a retainer of Toyotomi Hideyoshi later on. You can also see the comparison with Delita, because Delita was very good at speech, talking with the Knights Templar, talking with the Duke of Galtana and the Southern Sky. He was very persuasive, talking with the princess, getting her to trust him, talking with Ramza and Agrias, getting them on his side to kind of work together, even though they were on diverging paths. This is all making sense. Hideyoshi protected Nobunaga's retreat from Azai Asakura forces at Kanagasaki in 1570. Before that, he was made a general. In 1568, he eventually took the name Hashiba Hideyoshi. This name included two characters, one from each of Oda Nobunaga's right-hand men, Niwa Nagahide and Shibata Katsuie. How does this compare to Delita? So Delita, after the whole Zeikden Fortress incident with his sister, he sets himself up as the Black Ram Lieutenant for the Order of the Southern Sky under Baron Grimm. He also answered to the Church of Barbados. So he was playing both sides, but he was a lieutenant under the Black Rum Knights, eventually became the leader of the Black Rum Knights, then eventually he became the leader of the Knights and the Order of the Southern Sky, and then bam, he became king. So he just rose up and up and up and up and up, using everybody, using the Knights Templar, using the church, using the Southern Sky, and using the Duke himself. He played everybody. And Toyotomi rose up the ranks to eventually earn his titles, earn a new name, which came from different generals. You had Akechi Mitsuhide and Mori Yoshinari, you know, Hide and Yoshi, Hideyoshi. And then you have Niwa Nagahide and Shibata Katsuie. Niwa changed to Ha, and then Shiba, Hashiba. So he earned these names, these titles, and he rose up the ranks to eventually become victorious in many campaigns. And eventually, he became the successor to Nobunaga and ruled the entire Japan region. So, do you think this comparison is valid? Do you think you kind of disagree with it? And if you do, let me know why. All right, this is your boy, Dorian Andrews, aka Dory Darrell with the Dory Darrell Music Channel. If you like what you heard, like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe for more on the way. I have more music coming soon, so stay tuned, all right? This is your boy, signing out. Deuce, deuce.